Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Becoming You podcast. Today, I wanted to talk to you about the reasons why you might be really struggling with a goal that you have committed to. Now, again, this episode was inspired by my most recent healing journey that I've embarked on with regards to my lupus. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to drop in some episodes in the show notes, links that you can listen to the previous episodes that I have talked about my lupus and my healing journey. And so I want you to I want you to get as much value as you can out of this episode. But in the interest of those of you who are regular listeners to my podcast, I don't want to dive deep into all the stuff that I've already covered in my previous episodes. So if not, go back, click on the show notes, find the links to the older episodes, and then come back and listen to this. Okay. So for those of you who are loyal listeners, I'm on my 6th week of my healing protocol of my raw vegan diet in regards to my autoimmune disease and my lupus. And I wanted to share with you some lessons on what I have learned as to why we struggle when we have made a commitment to something and we know it's the best thing for us, and yet we tend to self-sabotage, or we have a really hard time committing to it, even though we know it's ultimately the best for us. And I have been in that boat for the last 6 weeks, and I wanted to share with you some ahas and insights that have helped me stick to one of the hardest things I've done in my life. And I have done some hard things in my life, and I keep doing hard things because when we do hard things, it makes us better. And it's good to do hard things so that we can get and maximize our potential. So week 1 and 2 of this protocol, I started out with like stars in my eyes because, as you know, in January, I had one of the most alarming news I've ever had, which is my lupus was affecting my kidneys. And that was enough to send me into a fear spiral. And I literally prayed for a solution where I could cure my lupus. And, lupus is supposed to be incurable. But just deep down, there was just this knowing where I just kept hearing the words like, I've healed my lupus, I've healed my lupus, I've healed my lupus. So I found this protocol that seemed to be the answer to my prayers, and I still do believe it's the answer to my prayers. And so week 1 and 2, when I started this protocol, I knew it would be hard, right? Hard for the obvious reasons of learning to eat in a new way, having to prep all my food, never being able to eat out, having to give up all the things that I love. And so I knew it would be hard, but I was ready to make the commitment because I was feeling the lowest of my low. And this is not the number one takeaway. We commit to things that we think are impossible or beyond our capability and our reality when we hit our lowest lows. And so as much as we hate the lowest lows, it is our lowest low that inspires us, that makes us reach to the depths of us and find out what it is that we are capable of, and equips us to make the journey that we're about to embark on. Most people's transformation journey doesn't begin because things are going well. Most people's transformation journey begins because things are at their worst. They're at their wits' end. They are close to like giving up, or they're in the deepest parts of their fear. But there is a part of them, a small spark of hope that says, I believe things could be different. Right? That is my transformation story when it comes to my lupus, time and time and time again. And a lot of my clients join my programs, sign up for my private, coaching, not because their life is great. It would be wonderful as humans if we could sign up to transform our lives when things are going well, because then it might be easier. But unfortunately, that's not how this human psychology works. And every single one of my clients have come to me when they are feeling at their lowest, they're the most scared, but they're not ready to give up and they're not ready to accept their current position. Instead, they are saying, I believe that things could change. I believe that there is more potential in me than I'm willing to believe. I believe things can be drastically different, and I'm willing to do what it takes to change it. And that's where I was at. So that's lesson number 1. we need to start appreciating our lowest lows. I know it's really difficult. I know it might sound crazy, but our life's most difficult times, your personal difficult times, lead to the biggest breakthrough if you let it. That was lesson number one for me. And that was a catalyst for my own um, journey in the last 6 weeks. And that's what led me to sign up for the protocol and commit. So week number one, I was excited to go, as all of us are when we start out on something new. Hope is fresh, right? Inspiration is fresh, motivation is high, and excitement is high. When we have all of those emotions surging through us, it's very easy to be ready and excited and, like committed to our initial goal. And for me, my goal is to heal my lupus and commit fully to this protocol, right? So that was week 1 and 2. But I also did go through the discomfort, the steep learning curve of learning new terms, learning how to eat, learning how to prep all my food. And when the learning curve is steep, the time investment is really, really high. So a lot of my first and second week was spent in preparing my food, thinking about my recipes, learning new recipes, buying new ingredients, and then allowing my body to get used to the discomfort of eating in this new way. So even though my excitement was high, inspiration was high, so was the physical and the emotional discomfort. And the emotional discomfort was different than the emotional discomfort I felt in weeks 3 and 4, which I'm going to share with you about in a minute. And the same goes for any transformation journey. When you start out on anything new, when you're committed, when you made a decision to change some aspect of your life, just know that excitement will be high in the first few weeks, but the learning curve will also be the steepest, and the level of physical discomfort you feel will also be very, very high in the first couple of weeks. And so will the emotional and the mental discomfort. Each person's journey is different. And obviously, this is not set in stone as to when does each discomfort hit you. It can hit you all at once. It can hit you in phases. But usually in the first couple of weeks, it's compensated by the fact the excitement and passion is high and your commitment is still fresh and you're still 100% committed. So that's where I was at week 1 and 2. I was compensated by the fact that even though the physical labor of prepping everything and learning so much was uncomfortable, I was still riding on the high of the motivation and inspiration and hope. Weeks 3 and 4 of this protocol, it was the hardest for me. And I think a lot of us can tolerate physical discomfort, but mental and emotional discomfort is extremely hard because it also affects you physically. And that's where I was at. I honestly was questioning everything in the 3rd and 4th week. And part of the reason was because I had a lot of family visiting from internationally. So we had these huge family gatherings and reunions. There were a lot of meals being prepared at my house by my mother-in-law. I have, and my mother-in-law's sister, who also I happen to call my mother-in-law. And we had, amazing family in town who I was loving spending time with. But as life revolves around food. And so every meal that was prepared was unbelievably delicious. And I couldn't eat any of it. I was, of course, tempted, which then led me to feeling sad, mad, anxious, depressed. And I really was starting to question, is this worth it? Is this worth it? I asked myself that so many times, and I reluctantly stuck to my plan because here I had committed, right? I was being held accountable. I'd invested a lot of money. I was already 3 weeks in, which means I was almost halfway through the program. So for all of those reasons, I stuck to the plan. And this is why financial investment is very, very important, because if I hadn't financially invested and I had taken all the free information about this protocol, which, by the way, everything is out there, I could have easily just been like, it's okay. One day doesn't matter, right? Like I had no one checking up on me, and there was no skin in the game without money. For me, money is a big motivator. Maybe for you it isn't, but for me, it's a big motivator. And knowing that I had, spent thousands of dollars on this protocol, so that I would be held accountable, so that I wouldn't be tempted to throw in the towel, so that I wouldn't be tempted to just taste a little bit here or a little bit there. This was the reason I knew paying for the program was really important and not taking the free route. And that is one of the reasons I stuck to it. But I was also very sad and depressed. And I attended, one of the support calls. And one of the things that I heard in that support call made all the difference in reframing where I was at. And one of the things that I heard was, when you're 100% committed to something, it becomes easy. When you are 99% committed to something, it becomes a struggle. And I felt those words like a gut punch to my stomach, because I realized that I was finding weeks 3 and 4 so hard because there was still a part of me that wasn't fully committed to what I was doing, which is why I was questioning, is this worth it? If I knew it was worth it, then I would be 100% committed and this wouldn't be hard. So even though I read this, and even though this meme or statement felt like a gut punch, it felt like a gut punch because it was the truth, and I hadn't realized it was the truth until that moment. One of the shifts that I decided to make was, I need to change this mindset, and I need to figure out, how do I get 100% committed from 99%? Because I knew I was at 99. I plugged into the support calls once more. I'd been attending the support calls, but I'd been watching passively, listening to other people get coaching, and kind of just checking off a list of things that I had to do to get through the protocol to make sure I was getting an A grade, but not fully into it with my heart and soul. So one of the things that I decided to do on that weekly call, I think it was week 4, was I put my hand up and I said, I really need help. I'm struggling. Up until that point, I just thought, oh, I'm doing okay. I don't need coaching. I don't have anything major. Like, I'm doing a really good plan, good point of sticking to the plan. So I don't need coaching. But boy, did I realize that that was actually a mistake. So I got coaching. And I got amazing coaching from the doctors that lead this protocol. And I actually said, I need you to help me. I need a kick up the ass. I'm doing the thing, right? I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm checking off all the boxes on the protocol, but my heart's not in it. I really need help. And it really coached me through it. And one of the feedback that I got was, one of the main components that provided you emotional support and happiness, which was thinking about food, planning my meals, preparing elaborately healthy vegan meals, was the thing that occupied my energy and made me feel really good about myself. It was part of my self-care, was to feed myself really good, nutritious food. And with this protocol, that identity had been taken away. I'm still eating nutritiously, but it's a very different type of nutrition. And I stick to just 2 or 3 different kinds of meals. And there aren't elaborate things to cook, right? It doesn't take me hours. So what are you going to replace this time and energy with in this connection and this self-care? It had to come through human connection. And so she said, you just need more time with humans doing fun things. So she really coached me around that. And right around this time was when I was getting ready to go on a work trip for 4 days. So I'd already been working on sourcing appliances to have at the Airbnb so that I could, have a food processor and a blender to make my smoothies, making sure. And I fortunately, the synchronicity of it is amazing. I was going to a town, staying on Airbnb, where I had a friend who could pick me up and take me to Whole Foods. So I had to do all the meal planning, write out all the ingredients I needed. And I went to Whole Foods, bought everything, managed to squeeze in everything into the fridge. And 1 or 2 of the nights that I was at this work trip, after everyone had gone to bed, because I didn't want to miss out on time with the people there, I would hang out with people till 11:30 at night. And then after they all went to bed, I would get to the kitchen and prep all 3 meals for the next day, so that I didn't have to miss any of the workshops, preparing my food, right, while the workshops were happening. So I'd prepare all the meals for the day ahead, and then I'd go to bed. So some nights I was going to bed at like 1 a.m. And that, again, this is the difference between making a commitment and a decision versus, oh, I'll do it if it's convenient. Nothing about this was convenient. But because I'd made a decision to heal my body, I was willing to do whatever it takes. And people at the event kept, commenting about how inspiring it was and how their minds were blown by the level of commitment I had, because we had catered dinners. We had servers giving us plated foods that was freshly made. The retreat was incredible that I went to. And it was hard to say no, but it didn't feel as hard as weeks 3 and 4 because an internal shift had happened that this is just the way it was going to be. So the drama was gone. And what I realized was that, in weeks 3 and 4, this is one of the takeaways. I was feeling a lot of emotion, right? Which is sad, mad, anxious, tempted, angry. I was feeling like a victim. And these were all emotions that we all feel all the time. And what we do is we let those emotions tell us stories. It's not just the emotion we feel, but it's also the story that comes with the emotion. So what I mean by that is when we're feeling sad, like we associate things like, this is really hard, I can't do this, right? That's part of the story that comes with feeling sad. I'm alone. Nobody, and part of the story that comes with feeling victimized is that I'm powerless in this. So with every emotion, we attach a certain story. And part of the story was, you will never be like, you're not, you're alone. Like you'll never be able to eat the things that you love again. That's a story, right? Maybe that's a fact too, but the story is you'll never be able to eat the things that you love again, which means that you're missing out on something, right? You're being deprived of something. That's another story. But there is actual no deprivation here. It's just the attachment to the things that I love, but now I can choose to get attached to health instead. So the difference that happens if you're struggling with a goal is that, one, you haven't fully committed and you got to figure out what is the bit of commitment that's lacking. Why? Number 2, get support, right? Like for me, support has been instrumental in helping me shift my mindset. And we all need support. There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting support. We need an outside perspective to help us reframe our thoughts, to give us fresh perspective, to help us think about things in a different way. And then number 3 is to notice the emotion, the difficult emotions that come when you're just feeling it, right? And not expecting things to be easy. It's okay that things are hard. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means there are certain feelings attached to it. And it's important for you to feel it and release the stories especially. So I've become really good at feeling my emotions and releasing them. Sometimes it takes me a few days, like it did, it took me a couple of weeks. But I allowed myself to feel the emotion, but not give in to the stories. The stories didn't go away. I just chose not to give in to them or believe them, because the ego will keep trying to persuade you to change your mind and go back to the old way. That's its job. It's just doing its job. It's survival, trying to find the most efficient way of living life. Because making change is hard and making change is not efficient in the short term. And your ego doesn't want you to make changes because it's really hard. It needs you to make new neural pathways to make change. And it's like, heck no, we need to conserve our energy. This is really hard. So it wants you to just default back to how things were, because then your brain becomes super efficient and you can just fall back into old patterns, right? And that's how we fall into self-sabotaging patterns. We don't have the capacity to experience our feelings and make new connections and write new stories. It's far easier to just go back to the old ways. And this is part of the reason why it can be really hard to create new habits and stick to our commitments. So get support and realize that, hey, I'm feeling some feelings, but I don't have to give in to my feelings. I don't have to believe my feelings. I can feel my feelings, but I don't have to believe the stories that come with my feelings. The final point I want to say is that this is now week 6, and I've just come back from a weekend with extended family. There was a big engagement ceremony, and I was gone from Friday afternoon to Sunday night, and meal after meal after meal at these events, at this particular event, at family gathering. was catered. It was delicious. And everybody kept oohing and eyeing about all the catered food and how delicious it was. And I realized that all the drama had disappeared. And for some meals, I actually removed myself from being around all that delicious food. And I would, eat my raw broccoli and dipped in guacamole, which happened to be my lunch on one of the days. And I would sit, it was all done, inside my cousin's home. It wasn't at an event space. So the meals were all happening down in the basement, and I would slip away to the dining room and I would just enjoy a long time, and I would enjoy my meal. And one of those meals, one of the guests had, sauntered upstairs. A couple of the guests had sauntered upstairs, and they actually said, I've noticed in the last 24 hours that they'd seen me, you keep eating, a lot of salads. Are you not ever going to eat the cooked food? So we got into the conversation of why I was doing this. And she asked me a question, and she said, oh my gosh, that's amazing that, and she said, don't you ever feel tempted? And, don't you ever just want to put something delicious in your mouth? Do you ever not feel tempted? And that question kind of made me pause. And I said, you know what? Of course I feel tempted. Temptation is a normal human feeling. We all feel tempted all the time. I would be a robot if I didn't feel tempted. I said, I just choose not to act on that temptation. And I felt that my feedback was worthy of bringing up in this podcast, because I think a lot of you struggle with committing to a goal and sticking to a commitment because you are tempted to sway or to default back to old ways. You're met with temptation in different ways, and you believe that you shouldn't be tempted, which is what trips you up. If I was really committed to this, I shouldn't be tempted in the first place. That's not true. Temptation is normal. Our egos try, like I said in the last point, our egos try to sway us, persuade us. Our egos try to self-sabotage. That's its job. But when you get really good at recognizing and feeling your emotions, what you start to do is realize that your emotions are not in control of you or your actions. Your emotions are not in control of your actions, but you get to be in control of your actions. When you're not truly committed to something, you allow your emotions to control your actions, which is what leads to self-sabotage or just being like, it's really hard today. I'm not going to do it. But when you start to notice and feel and release your emotion and the stories attached to it, you begin to be in control of your emotions. So don't expect yourself to be a robot. Don't expect yourself to not feel emotions. Instead, become a master at feeling your emotions, hearing what they are saying to you, and letting them go. And if I wasn't as skilled at feeling my emotions as I am today, I don't think I could have gotten through this protocol with the grace that I have done. So I want to invite you to realize that making a commitment is not easy to anything. Making a change is not easy to anything. So kudos to you if you made a commitment to something. But all the things that I've discussed in this podcast is the reason why you might be struggling or self-sabotaging yourself time and time again when it comes to truly sticking to a decision. You got to take a no matter what it takes approach. And don't ever make a decision on a commitment when you are feeling emotions, because emotions change moment to moment. But a decision should not change moment to moment, and neither should your commitment to something, because you made that commitment when you were feeling clear-headed and zero emotion, right? So don't ever make a decision and don't ever change a commitment when you are feeling deeply, deeply, intensely emotional. You're allowed to change a decision and a commitment if the decision no longer feels right to you outside of fear, right? We can make a whole episode on when are you allowed to make a change in a decision or a commitment. But the takeaway in this episode and what we have time for today is to know that emotions can change from moment to moment. That's very normal, but don't ever change a decision or a commitment moment to moment. It shouldn't, right? We'd be all over the place if we did that. And don't let your emotions sway a decision you made or a commitment you made when you were very clear-headed. Okay. So I want to invite you to check out my program, The Grounded Parent, and the way that this episode and everything I've discussed and how it links to you being a parent is we let our emotions get the better of us when we parent our children. We let our emotion of fear and sadness and loss of control, the feeling of helplessness, the lack of presence, those are all emotions we feel, affect our parenting. So the grounded parent is for the mom. I help moms who knows that she's fundamentally ready to change the way she parents. And she's ready to stop performing the duties as a mom and instead feel spiritually, emotionally, and mentally connected to her children, not by changing her children, but by changing herself. And now, if that's a program that sounds right up your alley, it's an 8-week program. I want you to check out the link in the show notes to learn more about how it all works and what is the 8-week involved, and to learn whether or not this is right for you. So do that. And a lot of it is learning to feel your emotions and release the stories that come with parenting. Parenting is a very triggering thing, especially if you haven't healed yourself. And that is what this program is about. So go check that out. And I would love to know either through DM or Instagram, private messaging, that's DM, or the email. And let me know what you thought about this episode, what are the lessons you got out of it. And if you love this episode, I would love for you to share it too. Share it with the people in your network around you and invite them to listen to this episode or this podcast if you found value in it. And let's get the word out there about this episode and about this podcast and all the value it brings to you. The more you share, the more more people get helped. So I love you. I thank you. I will see you next time. Bye.